Hi, welcome. I'm so excited to be here today with two new friends of mine that I met through Penn America, um, Patricia Jackson and Ben Hodge. And they are both English language arts teachers at a Central York High School in Pennsylvania. Ben also teaches drama classes. Patty's also the author of several middle grades novels, including Forging a Nightmare and Tales from the Empire, is in the midst of a new exciting project for some of her books. And Ben is also the founder and the advisor of a student group at his high school called PARU, which is Panther Anti-Racist Union. They've had some wild stories with book banning. And I asked them here today to talk about what they did. And it's a success story too, right? So what you did and what success you've reached, which is inspiring for teachers. So thank you so much, both of you, for being here with us today. Um, and Patty, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about the book banning that happened at your school, what the background was, and how you guys got involved in it?
The spark happened in the summer of 2020 after the murder of George Floyd. Some teachers came together, teachers, guidance counselors from K to 12, and we were concerned about what conversations the children might have upon returning in August. So we all got together and we started putting together a list of resources of books that we could use to talk about diversity, inclusion, that sort of thing. I was nervous from the jump because I felt that by putting that out there, that some of the racists that were on our school board at that particular time were basically going to come for us. And I don't like to be a prophet and foretell anything, but that's exactly what happened. Um, there was a book ban that started generated with our school board or some members of the school board, and there were those who were too afraid to say anything, which led to the banning of 300 to 400 books and resources. This includes Sesame Street Elmo talking about racism. This also includes a student PowerPoint by a Black student who simply was trying to ask the school board different ways that we could get more minority students to take the SAT. That was banned. That was on that list. And even though they wanted to say that this was a freeze, that it wasn't a ban, these books were removed for up to a year for review. But no one intended to review these books. They simply wanted them to go away. And our president at that time, the school board president, said it was simply a coincidence that the majority of these books were written by or about people of color or the LGBTQ community. It was awful.
Wow. So Ben, that's the setting. That's what happened. What did you guys do?
Well, as an active member of the diversity team since the beginning of it in 2008 at Central, it was one of the reasons why people came to Central. So this was a little bit of a shock to a lot of people in the community and some of the individuals. I had a couple educators come to me that were concerned, and they knew that I worked with the diversity committee. And one of them said, Ben, can you do something? We need to do something. And before that, I had over the summer during that, while those diversity resources were being put together, we were at the tail end of COVID, that really awkward year. And we had put together, I decided to put together a group, an anti-racist union based off of after I read a book by Layla F. Saad called Me and White Supremacy. It was one of my action steps from reading that book. And I wanted to take what I was doing within the walls of my theater classroom, which was really pro-diversity, bringing people together, breaking down barriers work, a lot of storytelling work, and bring that into, use Layla Saad's words to bring it into a more action step to the larger community. And so the Panther Anti-Racist Union was formed. There were about 6 or 7 kids originally. Most of us met via Zoom originally, and we were tracking that story, the racist rhetoric, pretty much through the summer of 2020, leading up to that school year, leading up to that ban. So thankfully, the action step came at the right time. So the Peru was formed before there was any book banning going on. So in retrospect, we were very fortunate that I read that book and we were doing the work that needed to be done to take the steps to be ready, because we started out as an educational group. We were meeting to give space to these kids to talk about what was going on and talk about the microaggressions that they were facing, and go through, we were watching James Baldwin clips, and they were like, I have no idea who James Baldwin is. And, so we were educating and we were learning and we were kind of growing together. And then all this book banning stuff started to happen, and we moved into what we called activism mode. And so we started to organize, and the kids wanted to protest. And they were they started with wearing black on Fridays. We would do a myriad of things, and it moved into, well, what about protesting? And we worked with the administration. We met with them and worked with ways to make sure that Patty and I told the kids that it was important to set and control the narrative, so that, and also to keep, I don't want to say keep our noses clean, but to avoid any of the optics that we were seeing across the country with the other protests and other rallies, particularly with students. Walkouts, if anybody's listening to this, walking out doesn't really have the same effect as walking in. The walkouts end up becoming a story about rowdy students and liberal teachers who are telling them to miss class. And to be quite honest, we found that we structured ours as walk-ins, where we would meet at 7 o'clock with signs in front of the school. We worked with administration where we could go, and we walked in together in solidarity after 15, 20 minutes of holding up signs and letting the school and parents and buses and people see what was going on. And it kind of started to create a buzz and generate people to show up. So that's really that's how that started to happen.
And what was the result? Either of you can jump in on this.
Well, initially what happened is the board doubled down, and that was a lesson for Peru, because there were some tears that were shed, and I'm like, but this is a victory. You poked the bear and you got a reaction. You should be thrilled by that. Now keep poking. And eventually the board overturned their ban and made their so-called freeze go away, and the books came back.
This is incredible. It's an
And
incredible.
a lot of that was because not only with the kids, we were relentless. And I will say that Patty was, I was one of those people that was really dejected after that original. And I think a lot of that is due to, it's just honest. It's my whiteness. Like, I'm used to getting, a cis white male. In the positions that I've been in previous situations, I usually could work the system well to get what and this was the first time that, I couldn't believe that would happen. And so it was a great opportunity to really learn how to continue to stay in the fight. It was a gut check, but it was much needed. So we just kept at it. It was relentless. We kept showing up at protests. I organized a couple community rallies outside of the ESC board meetings, which you're seeing a lot of people do now these days, but they were extremely successful, peaceful, student-centered, student-voiced, leaders in the community, positive messaging, and no negative signs, no F the school board or this or that or negative name calling. That's what they were doing. And we wanted to make sure that we took a higher road as much as we possibly could.
When I'm hearing you talk, I hear so many of the lessons we try to teach to everyday advocacy, right in what you're talking about, things like, positive messaging, the proactive work that you did along the way that led to this, the allies that you were able to create along the way, the working with administrators rather than against and contrast the administrators. Like, all of these are the kinds of things we try to promote through everyday advocacy. So it's so cool to hear them in practice. So I'm wondering, before we close the short thing, although I could keep talking for hours with you guys, what suggestions or tips do you have, other than the ones you've already mentioned, for teachers as they are facing these book challenges? Increasingly, we know, facing book challenges.
The thing that bothers me the most is what I find in teachers is a lack of courage. Mm-hmm. And I understand that you have to keep the lights on and a roof over your family's head, but at what price? You know, will you be like the German people during the Third Reich and just turn a blind eye to what is going on? That makes you complicit to what is going on. Peru won an award locally, and there was a woman there, a white woman, who said that she was a coward, you know, and she's laughing and joking in my face about, I'm such a coward, I could never speak up. And she wanted me to solace her. And I couldn't do it because it's cost me to be in this fight. They will come for you. And I'm a very proud union member of PSCA and my local union. And I will say this, do not be low hanging fruit. Do not be the teacher who comes late or is absent a lot or causes problems or has classroom management issues, because that will give them reasons to find, you know, a problem with you. Ben and I are, I don't want to say exemplary teachers, but we are extraordinary teachers that children seek out. They're always hanging around, whether we want them to or not. They're always hanging around. You need to be that teacher. And if you're that teacher, you need to find your courage and you need to stand up. And that's the problem. Teachers are not standing up because they are cowardly, and I'll say it, hiding in the blanket of their white privilege.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's straight facts. I would agree with everything she said. And, you know, to the courage point, there was a point in this battle where I was sitting on the couch with my wife, Jen, and I was just like, I don't want to get a paycheck from this place. I can't believe this is where we're at. This is not the Central I know, which ended up being one of our taglines. And yada yada. And I was like, I'm going to start looking for other jobs. And my wife looked at me and she goes, is this something that you'd be willing to lose your job over? And I said, yes. And she said, well, then if you quit, then they win. And so I think that it's important to, you have to get to a point where you got to put your head in the pillow at night and be proud and happy about the place that you're working at. And you can, like, you know, you can continue to put your head in the sand and pretend it's not there, or do what you can to fight. And I'm not saying that everybody out here who's watching this is going to be able to put together protests and community rallies. The little things matter. I would say start simple and find your anchors. That's something that Patty and I talk about. We anchor each other. She's my best friend, my sister, my ally, my compatriot, you know, my co-conspirator, all those things together. And this fight has brought us closer. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without her. I think we're seeing a lot of cases across the country where people are trying to do this alone, and God bless them and more power to them. But it's a hard fight, and you need anchors. You need one other person, two other people. You need to get the students and the teachers linked up so that those students and teachers can now bring in parents and community members. That was a big part of what we're doing. So really find your anchors, realize you're not alone, even though it feels like you are. And, you know, just encourage you to, like, you can either hate the place you work at and be part of the, you know, cycle of, you know, racism and issues that you're dealing with, or you can get up and try to do something about it. And I think that find your way to do one small step, whether that's opening your doors for kids to come into your classroom and start a club, start a gay straight alliance, start any club, a club where people can just gather and talk about what's going on in the hearts and minds of the kids at the school to see if you can get a pulse of things. It's a really, really important thing to find your anchors and take that first step.
And you have to know that you're causing ripples. That was something Ben and I didn't know. We were pushing so hard forward and feeling a little dejected, but we weren't giving up. And we started getting phone calls from Senator Casey. We started getting phone calls from Dr. King, Dr. Bernice King, the youngest daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King. We were receiving calls from really important people who had noticed, who had heard. And just so you know, we are scarred. We have an ACLU lawyer on speed dial that we sometimes share our social media posts with. That we share what we're going to say at school board meetings with, and the school board had no idea. But we actually have an ACLU lawyer who works with us. And there's also Bettina Love's Abolitionist Teachers Network that can scrub the internet if teachers get themselves in trouble, and it's a free service that is offered. So just know that there are allies out there willing to help you. You are not alone.
Hmm.
Thank you too so much first for everything that you do every day. And I just know that you're extraordinary teachers. Exemplary is an okay word to use. I know that you are. Uh, and I'm so delighted that you are taking the time to talk to us today at Everyday Advocacy. So thank you, thank you, thank you for
Thank you
everything.
for having us.
Thanks for having us, and thanks for all y'all are doing too. I hope keep up the good work.
Keep up the fight. It's not over.